In case you don't know, we're gonna talk about dispute resolution, basically a part of TalentLayer that I've been working on recently. I will follow this Notion doc because I've already put here some notes. So first of all, what is even a dispute? Well, it's basically just two parties or more that are not agreeing on something, and this something can be actually many things. In our case, the TalentLayer is on the execution of a service. So for example, if I'm a hirer and I hire a freelancer to develop a website for me, at the end of the service, it might happen that I'm not happy with the result. So I think that, I don't know, the landing page, it sucks because it's done in PHP. So I say, no, man, I wanted to do it in Next.js and table in CSS. So I open I can argue that the service has not been executed according to the terms that have been established. So what is a ruling? A ruling is basically a decision taken about the resolution of a dispute. So about who is the winner of the dispute, or it doesn't have to be necessarily a winner every time, but what is the conclusion? What are we gonna do about this disagreement between two parties? Arbitrator is an entity that can give a ruling. So basically, whoever has the power to decide how to solve the dispute. And arbitrators can be either centralized or decentralized. A decentralized example is, as we know, Kleros, which is basically a big network of jurors where many people have the power to vote on the resolution of disputes. Centralized can be, for example, a platform on TalentLayer. So this is more similar to how it works in Web2. Basically, on Upwork or all these freelance marketplaces, if for whatever reason you're not happy with a service that has been done, you probably contact the customer service and they help you out. They ask you for information, material, and blah blah, and they're gonna decide if you're right or wrong or whatever action to take. And evidence is another important part. So basically, evidence is whatever material a party can submit and use to support his or her point of view. So in our example of a freelancer and a hirer, I'm the freelancer who did the website. I can submit screenshots of the website or emails where we have been talking about how the website needed to be done. And on the hirer part, I can do the same with emails, or I can show up the contract that we have signed or these kind of things. And yeah, so here the workflow is like this. So first of all, we have to, initiate a service. And if two parties disagree on something, they can reach an agreement. Then one of the parties needs to create a dispute, or actually submit a request for creating a dispute. And when the other party is then prompted to either accept the dispute, so say, okay, I want to go on with the dispute and see how it's going to be solved, or basically don't do anything. And if a time period expires, then the dispute is going to be automatically win by the party who requested its creation. If the two parties agree to initiate the dispute, then they can submit evidence. So they can actually, as I said, give material and documents and whatever they need to prove their own opinion. And the arbitrator can then have a look at the evidence, review them, and then is going to decide how to give, what ruling to give. So basically how to decide who, the decision who's actually the winner of the dispute. In order to be as composable and modular as possible, we like to follow standards, of course. So Kleros has defined a couple of standards for this kind of arbitration things. And one of them is the arbitration, the ERC 792, which is the arbitration standard. And basically defines how to structure contracts to handle arbitration, so disputes. And there are mainly two types of contracts in the standard. One is arbitrable contracts, which is basically where disputes can arise. And this can be, for example, an escrow. In our case, the TalentLayer escrow. And the arbitrator contract, which is the contract that has the power to rule on the dispute. So an example is the contract, the Kleros contract that handles all the court. Another example can be our centralized arbitrator, where like the platform can connect to and do actions to decide what to do. And the standard basically defines the structure of these two contracts and the way that they interact. So that some functions, how they should be called, who should call these functions, and this kind of things. What does the arbitrator contract do? Basically, has to allow the creation of disputes, and this is done through a specific function that has to be called by the arbitrable contract, because disputes actually arise on the arbitrable contract. So then the arbitrable contract has to call this function on the arbitrator side to let the arbitrator, to make the arbitrator aware of the dispute that has been created. Appeals is kind of the same thing. And I mean, we're not going to focus on them again. And the arbitrator also needs to have the power to give rulings. Basically, this is done by calling another function on the arbitrable contract. So the arbitrable contract is where disputes arise. So is where you have basically more context on the dispute, and you know how to actually solve the dispute. For example, the arbitrable contract can be an escrow. So in the actual escrow, you know, okay, if the sender wins, then I have to send this money, which is in the escrow, to the sender. If the receiver wins, then I have to do the same with the receiver. So the arbitrable contract needs to define what is the logic that needs to be run when the dispute is resolved. But like the ruling is actually given by the arbitrator contract by calling the rule function. Just do a resume of the workflow between the two contracts interaction and then talk about the costs. So first step, the arbitrable contract needs to define where a dispute is created. So for example, in the escrow, there will be a function where either the sender or the receiver can say, okay, I want to create a dispute. Then if the other party agrees to create a dispute, then this is created by calling the create dispute function on the arbitrator contract. And the arbitrator now needs to basically store some data about the dispute so that he can know how to basically rule on the dispute. So basically needs to know what are the number of choices, of different choices that he can take. Then the arbitrator, well, submits, reviews the evidence, and etc., and then gives a ruling. And this is done by calling the rule function on the arbitrable contract. And the arbitrable contract, once it receives the ruling, it needs to enforce the ruling. So either send money to the sender or to the receiver in our example. Of course, this is not free. So especially in like the centralized arbitration like Kleros, there are costs because you need to incentivize people to actually arbitrate. And so the creation of a dispute itself has a cost, which is obviously going to the arbitrator for basically taking his time to rule on the dispute. This is how we do it. It doesn't have to be done this way, actually. Like the arbitrator just needs to define what is the cost, and then the arbitrable contract can actually decide how to pay it. I mean, it could be the person itself paying, like there is no enforcement on this. But like the standard way is to make basically either the sender or the receiver pay. The way it works is I'm the sender. I want to open a dispute. I'm gonna lock in the escrow the arbitration cost. Then the receiver of the dispute agrees to go on with the dispute. He's gonna lock also in the escrow the same amount. So we now have a sum of double the arbitration costs. And we're gonna send half of this amount to the arbitrator, so he's happy with the price. And the other half is going to be reimbursed to whoever wins the dispute. For centralized arbitration, so basically the one managed by the platform, the arbitration costs can be decided by the platform. And initially it's 0, but it can be changed, so it basically can be whatever the platform wants.
Bye bye.